It is now being reported that Donald Trump wants to privatize the United States Postal Service. These reports don't really cite to the United States Constitution, which says that Donald Trump couldn't do that on his own by way of an executive order. Congress has the authority and is the only entity charged with the authority to regulate the post office. So it would require a bill to be introduced and that bill to become a law. But corporate media will propagate Donald Trump's wannabe authoritarian propaganda. But there's a broader issue that I think we should discuss here with Donald Trump saying he wants to privatize the Post Service, citing financial losses. Donald Trump and the MAGA playbook is to destroy the agencies, to destroy the institutions, and then use their own destruction as a pretext for privatization and then enriching their fellow oligarchs and blaming Democrats or deep state or whoever, and then using those oligarchs like those who control Fox and other corporate media to propagate the lie. Fortunately, we still have this platform here on YouTube and at the MeidasTouch network to tell the truth, and we're going to use our voices loudly and proudly here. So let's use the United States Post Office as our first example, and then I'll show you some other examples of what's going on here. So who is the Postmaster General of the Postal Service who has utterly destroyed its ability to function? Oh yeah, it's a guy named Louis DeJoy. Louis DeJoy was appointed by Donald Trump, and back in May of 2020, when Donald Trump made that appointment, we and others were calling that out. We were saying, look, Louis DeJoy has never worked for the United States Postal Service before, but he is, or at that time was, an investor in numerous entities and contracting companies that competed directly with the United States Postal Service. In fact, Louis DeJoy's entire job was basically to compete with and bring down the United States Postal Service before becoming the Postmaster General. We discussed that, and what did he do as soon as he got that job? Oh, what were his qualifications other than wanting to destroy the entity he would lead? Well, he was one of Donald Trump's biggest donors. Surprise, surprise. Donated a lot of money, contributed a lot of money to Donald Trump. So what does he do when he takes over? He systematically rips it apart from within. Frankly, even Republicans have called out the way Louis DeJoy has handled the Postal Service. But that's not a quirk. That was the actual purpose of it. And it was the purpose to do that, to then privatize it, and then to hand it out as a favor to one of the oligarchs who show up at Mar-a-Lago and kiss the ring. I wonder, are people like Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg and Tim Cook and others who go to Mar-a-Lago, give $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration, are they lining up and trying to position themselves, for example, to be a privatized version of a Postmaster General and to take a billion-dollar contract or more as a favor, the way it exists, for example, in oligarchical countries like authoritarian countries like Russia? Is that one of the things that is taking place? So you take a look, for example, at the Post Service, where Trump's guy destroyed the Post Service from within, used that as pretext to privatize, hand it over to the oligarchy, let the oligarchy run it and profit from it, and exploit we the people. But take another example of it, right? The IRS. Look, nobody likes the IRS. Nobody likes the time when they have to go and pay taxes, but we all recognize that's something that we just do, and we want the IRS to be efficient and to go about its job correctly, and we don't want the decamillionaires and billionaires to cheat on their taxes and pay less in taxes, not just even as a percentage, but less actual dollar for dollar in taxes than a teacher, a bus driver, a construction worker. And that's what's going on as the very wealthy create all of these tax shelters and hide their money overseas and do all of that. The MAGA Republicans work for the oligarchs, so they want to help the billionaires do that and break down and crush the IRS. So President Biden tries to hire more people at the IRS. Republicans say, ooh, all these people are going to knock on your doors. The IRS is coming for you, which is not what actually happened at all. The efficiency of the IRS increased greatly. In addition, the new IRS commissioner, who was hired by President Biden and picked by Biden, he's a bipartisan guy as well, just coincidentally went to my high school many years before I graduated. He graduated many years before that. And then they created efficient systems like free tax filing online so people don't have to use software or go to like super pricey accountants if they can't afford it or they don't want to, because there's an efficient online system. Think about that, bringing technology to bear on government. One of the things that the IRS also did was improve the call time. So if you had an issue with the IRS, you could resolve that right away, get a hold of an IRS agent or operator right away, fix things, deal with things, because people were frustrated that you couldn't even get a hold of someone while they were making demands. The Biden administration fixed that. But take a look. Who does Trump bring in to run the IRS? A former Congress member named Billy Good. And former Congress member Billy Good's job before being at the IRS was Billy Long, Billy Good, Billy Bad, Billy Long. Billy Long's job, or was a member of Congress, MAGA Republican. And one of the things that his whole purpose is abolish the IRS and replace income taxes with a 23% sales tax. That was MAGA Republican Billy Long.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. This month is all about gratitude. I'm personally so grateful for the Meidas Mighty, especially this month. And along with the Meidas Mighty, who I just shouted out, there's another person that we don't get to thank enough, and that's ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything, and this is a crazy world that isn't easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Meidas today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Meidas.
So Trump is going to fire a guy at the IRS now who's pretty efficient in doing the guy's name is Danny Werfel, pretty efficient operator running the IRS efficiently. Again, no one likes the IRS, but he's running the entity efficiently. Trump's going to fire that guy and replace him with Billy Long, who wants to abolish the entity that he's now going to lead. Also, you've got MAGA Republicans reaching out to Donald Trump and saying, look, you need to get rid of, on day one, the direct tax filing system, because TurboTax, which is owned by Intuit, is lobbying the MAGA Republicans to stop this free tax filing system so that it could be always done with private software in private hands, because this is hurting the bottom line for Intuit. By the way, if you want to use TurboTax and Intuit, great. It's a good software. No one's saying don't use, but at the same time, it's great that the government is creating an efficient way for people to do the same task for free themselves online and save themselves some money. Not a bad thing. MAGA Republicans want to stop that because they want people to be pissed off and hate government. And here's where the media oligarchy comes into place, because they don't report on any of this crap. So people are frustrated at things. They're angry, they're pissed, but they don't know where to vent it. And so they're being told by Fox to vent it at the Democrats, vent it at deep state, vent it at these people. Here's who's doing it to you. Trans people, migrants are doing it to you. Libs are doing it to you. And people start to believe that. Then corporate media in general doesn't report on these things. So you have this loop, you have this cycle taking place. Now, who is it internationally that Donald Trump and his team looks up to? Who are some of the main people? Vladimir Putin, right? Who else? Viktor Orban, who's Vladimir Putin's stooge, who is the authoritarian leader of Hungary, who visits Trump frequently at Mar-a-Lago, right? Viktor Orban, Hungary, the entire GDP is under $200 billion a year. That's less than some American corporations. So why are you looking up to a country who had like 17 to 20% inflation and its entire GDP is $200 billion? Just like think about that. Who does MAGA attack? California, which would have like the fourth largest GDP, not in the United States, of any country. So attack California, which is funding the United States, the fourth largest GDP if California were to be a country in the world. Attack California, but let's prop up the new Argentinian leader, Javier Milei. right? They love that guy, Javier Milei. Why? He poses for photos with chainsaws. He literally says, his quote is, "My contempt for the state is infinite," meaning rip down everything, rip down all these regulations, rip it all down, tear it down, and prop it up with an authoritarian style austerity measures where people are kept down. Right? Just look at Javier Milei's Argentina right now. This is objective data right now. The brutal austerity measures has deepened Argentina's recession, with consumer spending falling 20% in the past year and poverty rates soaring to a 2-decade high of 52.9% in the second half of last year. So the Argentinian austerity measures have led to poverty rate soaring to 52.9%. Think about that. That is who Trump wants to bring here. Now you go, Ben, back that up with facts. You say MeidasTouch is fact-based. Back it up. Okay, well, here's Vivek Ramaswamy, who runs the DOJ, which is in charge of the Trump austerity measures, imposing Trump austerity measures on us. Vivek Ramaswamy says the following: the American version is called DOJ, in response to somebody saying, "At Mar-a-Lago last week, I spoke to Javier Milei. He's a leader on a mission to free his country from decades of socialism and mismanagement." And Vivek Ramaswamy goes, the American version is called DOJ. Let's be very clear. Under President Biden, 16.1 million new jobs have been created. That's fact one. Our GDP is the fastest growing GDP basically in the world. Our inflation is like one of the lowest inflation in the world right now. Unemployment is at an all-time low. We're energy independent, more oil drilling under Biden than under Donald Trump. Our stock market is up 50% under Biden than it was under Donald Trump. 40,000 new infrastructure projects created under President Biden. So you take all of those facts, but they're saying the guy who goes, "My contempt for the state is infinite." And I've described this before on a Substack post at MeidasPlus.com as the authoritarian loop, is what I call it. I call it the authoritarian loop, which is, how is it that in a state like Oklahoma, which is 49th in health, that's not a good stat to be like almost last, 49th in wealth, 49th in education, or close to that. You know, the worst stats in health, wealth, education, standard of living, all horrible. But they vote red. They vote Republican. All of why wouldn't they go, if we're last in everything, maybe we'd want to get better. Maybe it's the people who are running this that are keeping us down. In contrast, a state like Massachusetts, one of the top in wealth, health, education, standard of living, they were basically voted totally blue. So how do you see this disparity here kind of happening? And as I've described it as the authoritarian loop. We see this, for example, in authoritarian countries where if you can train your people to believe they're worthless, if you take away their education, if you take away their healthcare, if you take away their rights, if you take away their freedoms, if you take all of that away, then the people, and then you start handing out breadcrumbs. When people feel worthless, they accept the breadcrumbs, and then, you come in as the authoritarian, "I alone will fix it." You create the boogeyman, you have this being pumped out on the media, and then you say, "I'm going to fix all of the things," where you're the arsonist. That's one of the things here that I always talk about. Like, if you want to know the source of inflation, where do you think it came from? Trump added $8 trillion in debt. The most ever. You had Trump mismanaging COVID, mismanaging supply lines, printing money recklessly. The PPP program that he oversaw gave money to millionaires, printing money, let millionaires get their debt forgiven. But how dare you ever forgive the debt of students who are under an economic cap threshold as well? So you do all of those things. That creates inflation. That creates the economic problems that have to be solved. But the trick is, and the right wing is great at this trick, and this goes back to the Post Service, the IRS, all of this thing. They become the arsonists. You break it down. You burn it down. And then when the firefighters come in, you then blame the firefighters. The oligarchy tries to get their bailout on the way out. But then you blame the firefighters and you call them the arsonists. That's the sleight of hand. That's the trick. You call the firefighters the arsonists. You make the people believe that, and then the people re-elect the arsonists back into power to burn it down again. And we have this authoritarian loop and this cycle that's taking place that we need to finally, once and for all, break out of. That's what's going on. How do we break out of it? We have to connect. We have to get these messages out there. One of the things that we're trying to do here with this YouTube channel is just get the message out. We're hoping we do that, but we'll see. We're doing our best. We need to get them. We need it. We need your help in this. So thanks for watching. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million subscribers. Appreciate you.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.